What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'll walk you through step-by-step guide on how you can learn ReactJS in 2023. So without wasting any more time, let's get into it. Now, step number one is getting good understanding of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are the three core technologies that is used to build any web page or web application. So you have to make sure you learn these three first and have a solid understanding in these three first, especially JavaScript. Make sure you spend how much ever time you guys want learning JavaScript. You have a good understanding of what are arrow functions, what are promises, what is destructuring in JavaScript. All those tools will come super handy when you actually start learning ReactJS. So I highly recommend before you start learning ReactJS, focus on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. This is step number one. Now, step number two involves getting yourself familiarized with ReactJS. Go to ReactJS site, read the documentation, understand what ReactJS is trying to solve. Because you can build the same application in plain JavaScript as well. But why do developers or companies use ReactJS instead of just using plain old JavaScript? Understand what ReactJS is solving, because there is no point learning any tool if you don't know what it'll be used for in the future. So I highly recommend reading the documentation, reading blog posts, watching some videos on not actually to learn ReactJS, but try to understand what problem is ReactJS solving. And talking about videos, I highly recommend watching this video that will walk you through what ReactJS is and what problem is solving. Now, once you are familiarized with ReactJS and why do we need to use it, let's move on to step number three. Now, step number three is where the actual work begins. If you have made it this far, I'm pretty sure you're very serious about learning ReactJS. So let's get into it. Now, step number three involves understanding the core concepts of ReactJS. Now, you don't have to complicate things. There are only about 5 concepts in ReactJS that you need to understand in order to master ReactJS. So we'll go through each concept one by one. Number one is components. Learn what are components in ReactJS, how to build functional component, class components. Now, I've seen developers saying you don't need class components, and that is true for new applications because you can achieve a lot more by just using functional components. But if, let's say, if you learn ReactJS and you have to work on some old code base that is still written in class component, it's good that you understand the syntax of both and how both work. So get a solid understanding of what are functional components, what are class components, what are component life cycles. That is concept number one. Concept number two is understand what state is. Most of the React just involves around updating state and then rendering your UI. So understand what state is, how to manage local data in the component using state. Concept number three is props. Understand how you can pass data from parent component to child component using props. In React, you can pass data only unidirectionally. There is no two-way binding as you get with Angular. In React, you can pass data only from top to bottom. So learn how you can pass data using props. Number four is, and this is if you are using functional component, understand React hooks. It's very important. Understand how to use useState, useEffect. These are some of the main React hooks that you can use that you will need if in order to build ReactJS applications. So understand React hooks. Number five is JSX. Now, JSX is a JavaScript XML. It's a syntax in ReactJS that you can use to basically render your UI components. So understand what JSX is. And I've seen developers just know what JSX is, but they don't know how it works behind the scenes. Like, browser does not understand JSX. So you need another tool to compile JSX into JavaScript code. Understand that process because it'll help you in the future, get a deeper understanding of the library. Now, these are the 5 core concepts in ReactJS. If you master these 5, you will know ReactJS inside out. There are a few things here and there, but these are the main 5 concepts. So number 1 is components, number 2 is state, number 3 is props, number 4 is React hooks, and number 5 is JSX. Now this is step 3. Now let's move on to step 4. Step 4 involves learning how to fetch data in your React application. Because once you actually start working as a React developer, you will work on application that will require fetching data from external API. And fetching data inside React application can get tricky sometimes. So it's better to have a solid understanding of what is async await, how to use fetch API, what are promises, all those concepts. So learn data fetching inside ReactJS. Now that is step number 4. Let's move on to step number 5. Now step number 5 involves styling your ReactJS application, and which is very important because you have to make sure your apps look good. So there are a couple of ways you can style your ReactJS applications. Number 1 is just writing plain or CSS, and that I have seen a lot of developers do that because it's just easy. There is no additional setup required. But there are other ways to style your ReactJS applications using preprocessors like Sass or Less, or you can also use CSS in JS frameworks like Emotion or styled components. But I highly recommend, when you're just starting out, do not rely on other libraries. Just stick to what comes with ReactJS. So just use CSS to begin with, and then once you have a solid understanding of components, state, props, all those concepts, then you can use libraries like emotions or styled components. That is step number 5. Now let's move on to the last step, and this is probably the most important step. Now step number 6 involves building real life projects. There's no point in learning just theory. You have to take the concepts that you learn and apply it somewhere. That's how you'll get even better understanding of the library or any tool that you learn in future. So whatever you have learned, use it to build application. And it doesn't matter if you build to-do list, if you build like a simple landing page, as long as you are using ReactJS for it. This will give you that understanding that you will need to land a job as a ReactJS developer. So I highly recommend build at least 5 to 7, even more projects using ReactJS. Now what you will notice is when you start building the project, your speed will be super slow. But as you continue to build more and more projects, you will get better. You will have better understanding of the concepts. So I highly recommend build projects. Now that is pretty much it. In order to follow these 6 steps, you can do it one by one on your own, like searching the internet, watching some YouTube videos here and there, or you can follow a course. A course will give you like a structured way to learn something, so you don't have to like search around and see a bunch of videos and then connect the dots. I highly recommend watching this course on ReactJS. It's quite long, but do it at your own pace. It's a free course by Free Code Camp. That's pretty much it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.